You already know what it looks like. A stone dragon of a wall, riding the spine of the mountains, running off into the mist for as far as the eye can see. It is the most famous structure on the planet. And almost everything the average person believes about it is wrong. You cannot see the Great Wall of China from space with the naked eye. It was not built by one emperor. And it was never one single, continuous wall. What we call the Great Wall of China is not one wall at all. It is the ghost of thousands of walls, built and rebuilt over more than 2,000 years, by a dozen different dynasties, out of everything from packed dirt to carved stone. Stretch every piece of it end to end and you get a length that is almost impossible to believe. By one major survey, all the walls ever built add up to more than 21,000 kilometers. That is more than half the distance around the entire Earth. Built by hand. Along the tops of mountains. To keep something out. So sit with 3 questions. Why would a civilization spend 2,000 years, and an ocean of human lives, building a wall you can walk around? How do you even build a barrier that long, across deserts and mountains, with no machines and no modern tools? And here is the one that matters most. After all of it, did the Great Wall of China actually work? This is the real story of the Great Wall of China. Not the postcard. The truth. Chapter 1. The wall that never was. Let us start by killing the myths, because they hide something more interesting underneath. Myth 1. You can see the Great Wall of China from the moon, or from space. You cannot. The wall is enormously long, but it is only a handful of meters wide, and it is made of materials the same color as the ground it sits on. Astronauts have said plainly that you cannot pick it out with the naked eye from orbit, let alone from the moon. A highway is wider. The idea sounds beautiful, and it is completely false. Myth 2. It is one wall. Picture the Great Wall in your head and you probably see a single gray ribbon of brick snaking over green hills. That image is real, but it is only one small, restored, photogenic stretch near Beijing. The truth is that the Great Wall of China is a patchwork. Different dynasties built different walls, in different places, out of different materials, often hundreds of kilometers apart, sometimes running in parallel lines, sometimes doubling back, sometimes simply crumbling into the dust and being abandoned. There are gaps. There are branches. There are entire sections that have melted back into the earth. Myth 3. One emperor built it. This one has a grain of truth, and it points us to the beginning. Around the year 221 before our era, the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, unified the warring kingdoms into a single empire. To protect his new northern frontier from raiding horsemen, he ordered the existing border walls of the old kingdoms to be linked and extended into one long defensive line. So he did not build the Great Wall from nothing. He connected and expanded what was already there. And the human cost was staggering. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, peasants, and prisoners were driven north to labor on it, and many never came home. There is an old, grim nickname for the Great Wall of China. The longest cemetery on earth. And Qin was only the beginning of the rebuilding. The Han dynasty that followed extended the walls far out to the west, deep into the desert, to protect the Silk Road trade routes. Later dynasties patched, abandoned, and redrew the line as the threats and borders shifted. For long stretches of history, no one was building a wall at all, and the old ones were left to crumble. What we call the Great Wall of China is really the sum of all these efforts, a 2,000-year conversation between an empire and its northern edge, written in earth and brick. But here is the twist that most people miss. Almost nothing of that first Qin wall survives. It was built mostly of rammed earth, packed dirt pressed hard between wooden frames, and over 2,000 years, most of it simply eroded away. The stone and brick wall the whole world photographs today, the one with the elegant battlements and watchtowers, is far younger. It is mostly the work of the Ming dynasty, built between the 14th and 17th centuries. The Great Wall you are picturing is not ancient in the way you think. It is the last, greatest version of an idea that China rebuilt, over and over, for 2,000 years. Chapter 2. How to build a wall across a continent. Forget the machines. There were none. No trucks, no cranes, no cement mixers. So how do you build a wall thousands of kilometers long, across mountains, deserts, and river valleys, using nothing but human beings, animals, and what you can carry? The first answer is that you build with whatever the land gives you. In the deserts of the West, where there was no stone, workers built the wall out of rammed earth, and sometimes reeds and gravel, layered and packed until it set as hard as low-grade concrete. Astonishingly, some of these 2,000-year-old earthen walls in the dry western deserts are still standing today, preserved by the sheer lack of rain. In the mountains near the capital, where stone and clay were plentiful, the Ming builders went further. They quarried stone for the foundations and fired countless millions of bricks, and they carried it all, block by block, up slopes so steep that in places the wall climbs at an angle that would leave a hiker gasping. And then there is the detail that sounds like a legend but is real. The mortar. Chinese builders discovered that mixing sticky rice soup into their lime mortar created something extraordinary, a binding paste that was both strong and slightly flexible, resistant to water and to cracking. Scientists studying Ming walls have found the chemical fingerprint of that rice starch still holding the bricks together after 500 years. Parts of the Great Wall of China are, quite literally, glued with rice. And all of it took time on a scale we struggle to imagine. A single major section of the Ming Wall could take years to complete, and the full network was patched and extended across centuries. A worker might spend his entire life on one stretch of the frontier and die with the wall still unfinished, leaving the work to his sons. Whole generations were born, labored, and buried in the shadow of a project none of them would ever see completed. The Great Wall of China was not built in a lifetime. It was built across dozens of them. Now think about the logistics, because the wall itself is only half the miracle. To build across such terrain, you first had to move mountains of material to the middle of nowhere. Bricks and stone were hauled by hand, by cart, by mule and goat, and in some stories passed up the mountainside in human chains. Workers lived and died on the frontier. They quarried, they fired bricks, they packed earth, they hauled, in brutal heat and killing cold, watched over by the army. The Great Wall was not designed by a single genius. It was ground out of the landscape by the coordinated labor of millions of ordinary people, over a span of time longer than most civilizations last. And every brick had to be made before it could be laid. Near the mountain sections, the Ming builders set up kilns along the route and fired bricks on an industrial scale, some of them even stamped with the names of the units and workshops that made them, so that a broken or faulty brick could be traced back to whoever was responsible. It was quality control, 500 years ago, pressed into the clay. Millions upon millions of these bricks, each one shaped, dried, fired, and carried into place by hand, are what give the Ming wall its clean, engineered lines. Behind the postcard image of graceful battlements is one of the largest manufacturing efforts in human history. And crucially, they did not build across the land. They built along it. Wherever they could, the builders ran the wall along the crests of ridges and the edges of cliffs, letting the mountains themselves do half the work. Why climb a wall when the mountain under it is already a wall? The Great Wall of China is not really a line drawn on China. It is a line drawn on the mountains of China, tracing the natural border between the farmland of the south and the open grasslands of the north. Chapter 3. The longest machine ever built. Here is the idea that changes how you see the whole thing. The Great Wall of China was never just a wall. A wall on its own is a stupid defense. It is long, thin, and impossible to guard everywhere at once. Given enough time, anyone can climb over a quiet, empty wall. The Great Wall only made sense as part of a system. Think of it less as a barrier and more as a machine, thousands of kilometers long. Set into the wall, at regular intervals, were watchtowers, tens of thousands of them. Some were lookout posts. Others were garrison towers where soldiers lived, stored weapons and food, and sheltered from the weather. From the top, a sentry could see for kilometers along the wall in both directions, and out into the lands beyond. Larger fortresses and gate complexes guarded the mountain passes, the few places where an army could actually get through. And the towers could talk to each other. This is the part that turns a wall into a network. When raiders were spotted, the garrison would light a signal, columns of smoke by day, fire by night, and by some accounts they varied the number of signals to indicate how large the enemy force was. The next tower down the line would see it and repeat it, and the next, and the next. A warning could race along hundreds of kilometers of frontier far faster than any horse, reaching commanders, and calling up reinforcements before the enemy even arrived. The Great Wall of China was, among other things, one of the largest communication systems of the ancient world, an early internet written in smoke. And a tower was only as good as the people inside it. Life on the Great Wall of China, for the ordinary soldier, was mostly boredom wrapped around moments of terror. Garrisons could be posted for years in remote towers, far from home, short on supplies, enduring freezing winters and blazing summers on a lonely stretch of stone. They grew food where they could, waited for pay and provisions that were often late, and stared at an empty horizon that might stay empty for a lifetime, or might suddenly fill with dust and horsemen. The wall did not defend itself. It was defended by tens of thousands of cold, tired, watchful people, most of whose names we will never know. So the wall was not meant to be an impenetrable barrier that stopped every attacker cold. It was meant to slow them down, to funnel them toward defended gates, to deny fast-moving horsemen the element of surprise, and to buy the defenders the one thing that wins wars: time. A raiding party that might have galloped across an open border and vanished with its loot now had to find a way through or over, while smoke signals summoned an army to meet them. The wall did not need to be unbreakable. It only needed to make attacking expensive. And at the two ends of the Ming Wall stood its greatest fortresses, guarding the points where the whole system began and ended. Far to the west, at the edge of the desert, the fortress of Jiaguan sealed the wall's western tip, the last major stronghold before the empire gave way to open sand. Far to the east, where the wall runs down out of the mountains and meets the sea, stood the great pass of Shanhaiguan, the strategic gateway between the northern plains and the Chinese heartland. These were not just walls but small cities of soldiers, gates, and barracks, the anchors that held the entire frontier in place. For centuries, along thousands of kilometers of frontier, that was the quiet, grinding job of the Great Wall of China. Not the dramatic last stand of the movies, but the daily work of soldiers watching an empty horizon, keeping the machine running, waiting for the smoke. Chapter 4. What a wall is really for. And now the hardest question. After 2,000 years, millions of laborers, and a river of human lives, did the Great Wall of China actually work? The uncomfortable answer is, not the way you would hope. History is full of moments when the wall failed. Determined enemies went around its ends, bribed their way through its gates, or simply exploited the fact that a line thousands of kilometers long can never be strong everywhere at once. Most famously, in the 17th century, the mighty Ming Wall did not stop the Manchus from sweeping down and conquering all of China. They came through a gate, opened from the inside by a defecting general. The greatest wall ever built was undone, in the end, not by a battering ram, but by a betrayal and an open door. And this was not the only time. Centuries earlier, the horsemen of Genghis Khan and his Mongols had swept past and through the walls of their day, going on to conquer all of China and found a dynasty of their own. Time and again, the wall proved that a barrier is only ever as strong as the will and the loyalty of the people standing on it. A wall with no defenders, or with the wrong defenders, is just a very long pile of bricks. So if it could be beaten, why build it, and rebuild it, for 2,000 years? Because a wall is never only about stone. On the practical side, even an imperfect wall changed the math of raiding. It made casual, opportunistic attacks harder and costlier, and for long stretches of history it did help hold a fragile line between the settled farms of China and the nomads of the steppe. It was not a magic shield. It was a filter, and a speed bump, and an early warning line, and sometimes that was enough. But the wall was also a statement, written across the mountains in earth and stone. It said, "This is where we end and you begin." It projected the power and the will of the empire to everyone who saw it, on both sides. It gave an anxious civilization a sense of a hard edge, a defined shape, a place where the known world stopped. In that sense, the Great Wall of China worked perfectly. It may not have kept every enemy out, but it did something arguably more powerful. It told a whole civilization who it was. And maybe that is the real reason it still grips us today. We look at the Great Wall of China and we see the oldest, largest expression of an urge that has never left us. The urge to draw a line. To build a barrier against the thing we fear, and to feel safer for it, whether or not it truly makes us safe. The people who built it are long gone. The horsemen it feared have vanished into history. But the wall is still there, running along the mountains, dividing the map, asking the same question it has asked for 2,000 years. What are we really trying to keep out? And does the wall ever truly work?